Today, we need to discuss a development that could completely change how many investors view Ripple and XRP. Surprisingly, this news has not received the level of attention it deserves, yet it may be one of the most important updates for both XRP holders and anyone following Ripple as a company. Hey guys, welcome back to Whiteboard Crypto Update. In today's video, we will talk about XRP. So be sure to stay focused, as you surely don't want to miss out on this. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications by hitting the bell so you never miss any of our uploads. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. For years, critics have repeated the same arguments against Ripple, and one of their favorite talking points may have just been dismantled in a major way. In this video, we're going to examine exactly what happened, why it matters, and what it could mean for Ripple and XRP moving forward. To understand why this news is so significant, we need to go back several years. In 2018, Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse made a statement during an interview that sparked a tremendous amount of controversy within the cryptocurrency community. During that discussion, he suggested that Ripple would not have been profitable without selling XRP. That statement immediately became ammunition for Ripple critics. From that moment forward, many people began claiming that Ripple had no real business model. According to those critics, the company existed only to sell XRP into the market. They argued that Ripple generated no meaningful revenue outside of XRP sales, and that the entire company was simply a vehicle designed to distribute tokens. This narrative spread rapidly throughout the crypto industry and became one of the most common bearish arguments against Ripple and XRP. However, the reality has always been far more complicated than the critics suggested. In fact, Ripple executives, including CTO David Schwartz, have openly discussed Ripple's role in distributing XRP. Ripple was given a large amount of XRP, and part of its responsibility has always been introducing those tokens into the broader market. This wasn't some hidden secret. It was part of the design from the beginning. The reason for this goes back to how the XRP ledger was created. Unlike Bitcoin, XRP was not designed around mining. Bitcoin distributes new coins through a mining process that requires enormous computing power and energy consumption. The creators of XRP wanted something different. They wanted a blockchain that was significantly faster, more efficient, and more practical for real-world financial transactions. But eliminating mining creates another challenge. If there is no mining process, how do you distribute the supply of tokens? That question required an entirely different solution. Ripple became part of that solution by distributing XRP over time. Interestingly, this issue even contributed to disagreements among some of the early XRP founders. One of the ideas proposed years ago was simply giving XRP away for free. Some people argued that this would be the fairest approach because everyone would have equal access to the asset. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. However, there is another side to that argument. If XRP had simply been handed out to anyone willing to claim it, many recipients might have immediately sold their holdings without contributing anything to the ecosystem. The tokens would have left the ecosystem while providing little long-term benefit for XRP adoption or infrastructure development. Ripple chose a different route. The company sold XRP and used portions of the proceeds to expand the ecosystem, build partnerships, develop products, and acquire businesses that could strengthen XRP's utility in the future. When you look at projects such as Hidden Road, Ripple Prime, Treasury-related initiatives, and other institutional products, you can see the broader strategy. The objective has been to increase real-world use cases for XRP and strengthen its role within global finance. Whether someone agrees with that strategy or not is a matter of opinion. Some investors love the approach, while others dislike it. But the important point is understanding why the system was designed this way in the first place. Fast and efficient blockchains often require different distribution mechanisms than traditional proof-of-work networks. Personally, many supporters believe Ripple's model makes sense because the proceeds from XRP sales are reinvested into building infrastructure, products, and partnerships that could potentially increase XRP adoption over time. In contrast, many token distributions simply enrich early recipients who sell their tokens and move on without contributing to the network's growth. Over the years, however, this entire discussion became distorted. What started as a conversation about token distribution evolved into a much broader criticism. The narrative shifted from Ripple sells XRP to Ripple has no business except selling XRP, and that's where things became misleading. Many observers have long suspected that Ripple generates substantial revenue from its actual business operations. The company has built payment solutions, enterprise software, custody products, institutional services, and numerous partnerships around the world. Yet, despite all of that, critics continued arguing that XRP sales were the only thing keeping the company alive. The problem was that investors never had detailed public numbers proving otherwise. That may have just changed. Recently, Brad Garlinghouse participated in an interview with Fox Business, and among the many topics discussed, one particular comment stood out. While he spoke about regulatory clarity, the future of digital assets, artificial intelligence-driven payments, and Ripple's global expansion strategy, there was one statement that deserves special attention. Brad indicated that Ripple expects to reach approximately $1 billion in annual revenue by the end of 2026, excluding the XRP held on Ripple's balance sheet. Think about that for a moment. If that interpretation is correct, Ripple is generating or expects to generate roughly $1 billion in revenue independent of selling XRP from its reserves. That would mean the company possesses a large, growing, and sustainable business model entirely separate from token sales. If confirmed, this could be one of the biggest developments Ripple supporters have seen in years. Why? Because it directly challenges one of the most persistent criticisms ever made against the company. For years, critics claimed Ripple depended entirely on XRP sales for survival. Yet if Ripple is capable of generating around $1 billion annually without relying on XRP reserves, that argument becomes incredibly difficult to defend. Instead of being dependent on token sales, Ripple would be operating as a major financial technology company with significant revenue streams and expanding global influence. This is also extremely important from an XRP perspective. Whenever Ripple grows stronger as a company, the XRP ecosystem potentially benefits as well. Ripple remains one of the most influential builders within the XRP ledger ecosystem. The company develops products, forms partnerships, works with institutions, and promotes adoption across financial markets. A financially powerful Ripple is likely better positioned to invest in infrastructure, innovation, and expansion than a company struggling to survive. Additionally, this development helps eliminate another common fear. Some critics have long suggested that Ripple would eventually be forced to sell massive amounts of XRP simply to keep the lights on. But if Ripple has a thriving business generating substantial revenue, that fear becomes far less convincing. Of course, Ripple will likely continue selling XRP as part of its broader distribution strategy. That's entirely different from selling XRP because the company needs emergency funding to survive. Those are two completely separate concepts. Another reason this matters is because Ripple's XRP reserves are not infinite. Eventually, the amount of XRP available for distribution will continue declining. Therefore, it is essential that Ripple has a durable business model capable of standing on its own. Based on these recent comments, that appears to be exactly what is happening. The cryptocurrency industry has seen countless projects rise and fall over the years. Many generated excitement but failed to create sustainable businesses. Others launched impressive technology but never achieved meaningful adoption. Ripple appears to be taking a different path. Not only has the company spent years building technology designed for institutional finance, but it may now be proving that it can generate substantial revenue independently of XRP sales. That combination is extremely powerful. On one side, you have the XRP ledger, which many supporters believe is one of the most practical blockchain networks for traditional financial institutions. On the other side, you have Ripple potentially evolving into a massive financial technology company with strong revenue growth and expanding influence. This is why many investors view the recent comments as such a significant milestone. One by one, some of the largest bearish narratives surrounding Ripple and XRP have weakened over time. The argument that XRP was a security faced serious challenges. The argument that XRP lacks institutional utility continues facing increasing scrutiny as adoption expands. And now the argument that Ripple has no real business outside of XRP sales may be facing its biggest challenge yet. Throughout the years, many people dismissed Ripple's strategy because it did not align with the anti-bank, anti-regulation mindset that became popular in certain corners of the crypto industry. Ripple chose to work with financial institutions instead of fighting them. Ripple chose compliance instead of confrontation. Ripple chose long-term infrastructure building instead of short-term hype. Whether someone agrees with that strategy or not, the company has remained focused on execution. And now, based on Brad Garlinghouse's recent comments, it appears that execution may be producing significant financial results. At the end of the day, hearing supporters claim Ripple has a strong business is one thing. Hearing Ripple's CEO discuss revenue approaching $1 billion outside of XRP holdings is something entirely different. If these numbers continue trending in that direction, Ripple could become one of the most important companies in the entire digital asset industry. Many investors believe the future could include a Ripple IPO, greater institutional participation, broader adoption of XRP, and increased demand from major financial players seeking exposure to the ecosystem. Whether that future unfolds exactly as supporters expect remains to be seen. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. The narrative that Ripple exists only to sell XRP is becoming harder and harder to defend. For long-term XRP supporters, this development represents another major step forward and another reason many remain optimistic about Ripple's future, XRP's adoption, and the company's growing role in global finance. Well, guys, that's all we have for you today. What are your thoughts on XRP? Get involved and let us know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again in the next video. Goodbye.